Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is a talk video. We've got Wrecker Mercenary coming out tomorrow, so it is time for a kit breakdown and analysis video. A couple days delayed on this because we've just been working on putting out so much Conquest content. We've got videos on Datacrons, an overview, every sector, efficient ways to approach it if you need to check out any of those videos. But today, our breakdown and analysis, looking at the insights and tips, gear, quick look, and then the synergies now that we have an almost complete squad. With Wrecker, we have a new light side Bad Batch Mercenary tank. His attributes, he has a buff dispel on basic. Those are always very powerful. I always like to see it. Provides turn meter manipulation. That's just going to aid to an already fast squad that takes a lot of turns. And tips, Wrecker's second special improvised weapon should be used strategically to prevent losing stacks of target practice. So use the AoE, which spreads the eligible targets you can hit. Maybe if there's marked or taunt preventing you from hitting who you need, this will help reset it. Tenacity mods makes it harder to remove the Soldier of Fortune stacks. Happy about this because I actually stopped buying tenacity mods out of the stores because I just felt like I had too many. We don't have enough places to put them, so I'm happy to have a new place. And then as the Soldier of Fortune stacks get higher, it gets harder and harder to remove the stacks of Soldier of Fortune because his tenacity will be stacking. His basic Haymaker, dispel all buffs on the target and deal physical damage to them twice. So this mechanic is becoming more and more common, but there still aren't too many characters who have a dispel on basic, but it's always something that I think is very powerful because you can call them in assists. You can have a very persistent means of removing those buffs, whereas with specials you might have to wait a few turns before you can start changing the momentum. During Wrecker's turn, remove 5% turn meter for each buff dispelled from the target. Other Bad Batch allies gain 10% turn meter. So hopefully this tends to be the character required to be hit for target practice. The turn meter gain combined with all the speed mechanics elsewhere, like on Badger's kit and Hunter's kit, this team is going to be taking a lot of turns. We should have an effective chain going, and now Wrecker is adding to that with the turn meter gain. The first special, Colossal Smash, this is a cooldown of 3. Physical damage to the target and inflict disarm for 2 turns or until Wrecker Mercenary is defeated, and remove it from all other enemies because only one character can have it at the time. If the target enemy was already disarmed, this ability deals 50% more damage, excluding the GLs. Disarm, that was introduced in Curzanton's kit. Minus 50% crit damage and offense. Whenever the disarmed character uses a basic, they gain a damage over time. So ideally, this should go on the most dangerous attacker, and the marked and dispel should help make that easier than it has been on Curzanton. So I find I just keep throwing it on a tank because you have to. If Wrecker has more than 30 stacks of Soldier of Fortune, he and the weakest other Bad Batch ally gain 50% turn meter. We have another mechanic adding to the squad, getting faster the longer the battle goes on, and then taunt for 2 turns. This is a bit of a surprise to me because what I was expecting from the mechanics of Fugitive, where the stealth hops around to the strongest character, I wasn't expecting a taunt. But it's nice to have it just because if you are getting to a situation where health is starting to cause that stealth to land on an undesirable character, now we have a taunt to bring the focus of the attacks back onto the tank. Our second special, Improvised Weapon. This is a Zeta ability with a cooldown of 6. This is the ability talked about in the attributes and tips portion. AoE physical damage that inflicts an AoE stagger. So we have some control going on with the attack. And that control is also going to feed into the speed and turn meter mechanics of the entire squad. So we should see this Bad Batch squad taking a ton of turns if we time all these abilities correctly. AoE Bad Batch debuff cleanse. If it's defense down, speed down, or tenacity down, when it's dispelled from a Bad Batch ally, they're going to gain the opposite buff. The cooldown here, though, it's too large for us to think of this as a cleanse ability. This is just a nice bonus. We're not relying on it for those mechanics. What we want is this next portion. Each time this ability is used, Wrecker gains 25% defense, max health, max protection. That's stacking up to 100%. That's the main mechanic. We use it 4 times. We have the maximum use out of it. This is what we're looking to do to make our squad more and more survivable as the battle goes on. But because of that big cooldown, I'm not worrying about the other aspects of it. We're just trying to get this ability out as often as we can use it to increase Wrecker's stats. Our unique ability, you gotta be in front to win. This is a Zeta and Omicron ability, and this is a big one. There's a lot going on here. Bad Batch allies gain 75% tenacity. At each encounter start, Wrecker is going to taunt. Whenever an enemy attacks out of turn, Bad Batch allies are going to recover 5% health and protection. We have another passive heal on the squad, and one that the enemy is going to be contributing to. So taking this Merc squad up against teams with a lot of attacks out of turns is going to be ideal, because it's going to help us heal. Whenever Bad Batch allies are inflicted with healing immunity, they dispel it, recover 25% health and protection, and gain defense up. That's a big heal. That could really hurt those squads that inflict healing immunities, and this feels like the squad is going to be taking on Gungans at a minimum. We're going to have another Gungan counter. Whenever an enemy gains 50% or more bonus turn meter before a Bad Batch ally takes a turn, all Bad Batch allies gain 15% turn meter. When another Bad Batch ally is inflicted with captive, the cooldown of improvised weapon is reset and Wrecker gains taunt. So we have a mechanic here that's doing a few things. One, we have something that is going to make it easier to rescue a character from captive, because now our AoE ability can go out and work towards getting those 30 stacks of target practice more quickly. But we're also making our Wrecker more survivable. So as characters trigger that captive, that cooldown is managed from improvised weapon, which is going to help aid the long-term survivability of the squad. And while another Bad Batch ally is inflicted with captive, Wrecker has an additional 25% max health and max protection. So that's doing another couple things. We're adding to that greater theme of added survivability, but it's also protecting other characters from also having captor triggered on them while another character is already captive, because now Wrecker is just that much better at being a tank when we're in those moments of vulnerability. Our Omicron ability is a territory battle Ami. Bad Batch allies gain 100% max health and max protection and 50% offense. At each encounter start, Wrecker gains 100% defense stacking until the end of the battle that persists through defeat, and whenever an enemy takes a turn, Bad Batch allies gain 5% turn meter. So that's more than the attacks out of turn healing the squad. That was just taking a turn, adding to the whole speed theme of the squad. If a Bad Batch ally is defeated after captive has already been used while Wrecker is active, they're going to revive with 100% health and protection and stealth for 2 turns. That can only occur once per character, but that's a bunch of survivability added to the squad. So what makes sense to me here is if you're investing in this squad, and once we get to the next unique, we're going to have more reasons to invest relics into this squad. This Ami just makes a lot of sense, because as we get to those later waves and phases of territory battles, a lot of our existing squads do not perform very well. We have a much smaller pool of what's going to do well. This clearly is going to make this squad be very effective in the later stages of territory battles where we have a smaller pool of options. And we're probably going to want to do that because this is probably going to turn into a very popular defensive squad in Grand Arena. We're going to have players investing high relics into a number of these characters. And the players who do that, they have just another reason to throw on this Omicron. Because if you're already putting in that kind of investment, just build on it to take advantage of it in every game mode. Our second unique, Soldier Fortune. At the battle start, Mercenary Wrecker gains 1 stack of Soldier Fortune for each relic amplifier level he has. So this is something that we already saw on Fugitive's kit. Mechanics that are saying keep investing relics into this character to get the best functionality. This is something that we've seen with GLs. Now we're starting to see it on some marquee characters. And this is why I was saying with the Ami, we have all these reasons and incentives to invest into higher relics, especially because Wrecker is a tank. We already are going to see a huge benefit taking him up to Relic 9. And someday, I thought for 2 years now we should be getting Relic 10. We should be seeing Relic 10. And he may be a candidate for Relic 10 depending on what kind of stat boost we're going to see from that level of investment. Now for the rest, whenever a Bad Batch or Mercenary ally is critically hit, Wrecker gains 3 stacks of Soldier of Fortune. Whenever Wrecker is inflicted with a debuff, he loses 5 stacks. Soldier of Fortune. So there's that mechanic that was alluded to in the insights and tips, where he will be gaining a little bit through being a tank, but he's also losing some through those debuffs, which is why we want high tenacity. But this final part, at the start of each mercenary ally's turn, they gain 5% defense stacking and 1% tenacity stacking for each stack of Soldier of Fortune. So here's that final part that was alluded to, where as the battle goes on and he's getting more and more stacks of Soldier of Fortune, he's getting more and more tenacious. It's only for a turn, but it's still going to have that effect. If it's like 5 stacks early in a battle and there's a push and pull on those debuffs, later in the battle it might be 30 stacks, 40 stacks, whatever it turns out to be. And it is going to just prevent those debuffs from landing, which will slow down the amount of Soldier of Fortune he's losing, which is just going to speed up the amount of Soldier of Fortune that he retains. With Wrecker's gear, he's surprisingly easy to gear, particularly for tanks. Now, this matters a whole lot less than it used to, but I still find it interesting because I'm always long-term planning for multiple projects. He only has 1 Cairo at gear 8, 1 at gear 9, 1 at gear 10. So there's no like traditional choke points, even though for most mature accounts, that's not as big of a deal. For a lot of middle game accounts, those Kairos can still be a choke point. The rate at which players are using Carbantes or stun guns is still slowing down players a little bit early on. Not in the way that it used to, but it still does to a certain extent. And that's just not going on with this kit. And the gear line to gear 12 jump is nothing. And at gear 12, this is a easy gear 12 to relics. He's got the Cairo computer, which is the easier of the two. It's not as in demand, so it's easier to accumulate them. And then he doesn't have those fusion furnaces, the gold fusion furnaces. Only has 2 Mark 8 Nubian scanners, which is a little bit more of a pain, but only 1 med pack. And as far as relics go on a character, that makes him an easy relic. Synergies. Just touching upon some of the major mechanics as a reminder, so we don't have to revisit all of those old videos to remember these kits that we're not really using right now until CG gives us a proper reason. Now, Omega Fugitive. Leadership ability here is the most interesting thing. One, we have that stealth mechanic that's going to be going on with this squad, where everyone but the healthiest character is going to go under stealth. That's, in most cases, it's going to be Wrecker. And that stealth is going to jump around depending on who is healthiest. So as Wrecker starts taking that beating, it's going to move, but we can bring it back to Wrecker with that taunt. The other aspect to this stealth is at the start of each character's turn, if they're stealth, they're going to heal a little bit. We pair that with Wrecker's passive heal when the enemy attacks out of turn. Now we're seeing the accumulation of these soft heal abilities paired with some of the other heal abilities on the squad. We're going to have a lot of recovery. Just remember also how target practice works. You need to hit the last character that was hit by your ally. And if it's an AoE, then you have choices. You can go after anybody. There's a little marker. We need to just control that, especially as we have other allies that can mark the enemy, or if our enemy starts taunting. Another aspect is stealthed allies are immune to damage over time and plague. So that opens up additional squads that are probably going to struggle up against this Bad squad, which is why I think this squad is just going to be very common to see on defense, and those of us who work towards this earlier are going to see some major benefits, because we're going to see Night Sisters aren't going to be an option, both because of the plague, but also because some of them land healing immunity, and healing immunity is just going to trigger another soft passive heal from Wrecker's kits. And then the damage over time means just an additional set of characters. We're going to see that certain Sith characters won't be an option. Old Republic, even with like Zelbar seeing this new Omicron, that might not be an option here. Just a smaller and smaller pool of what's going to work. We may even see like Lord Vader might struggle. This might be a situation where, even though we're not going to have the full mechanics up against the GL, this squad might be able to take on a Lord Vader, even though we have plenty of other options against Vader with Afra and Bo-Katan and Fennec. Batcher's the attacker, But because of those speed mechanics, we're just helping Batcher be more effective through some speed downs, speed ups, turn meter gains. There's a lot of things going on that will aid to what Batcher does. Batcher's also the character who marks, well, two characters mark, but with Batcher along with Hunter, we get those marks and a bunch of offensive boosts. But one thing to be aware of with Hunter is he has a random assist when he uses his basic ability. And we pair that with Wrecker's buff Dispel on basic. We have a chance every time that Hunter takes a turn that Wrecker could be the one to assist, and we could use that as a chance for a Dispel. And now we are one character away. We've got Crosshair, and it'll be interesting to see what he has. I'm expecting some sort of potency mechanic on his kit, but we already have strong attackers, we already have cleansing, we have healing, we have tanking, we have leadership stuff. We don't really need a lot. It's somewhat similar to Omega's role on the old Bad Bat squad. It boosted things, but it wasn't critical. The rest of the squad functioned well enough. The only thing that we're really missing, I guess, is control. We have a little bit of shock, we have a little bit of stagger, but we don't really have a lot of stuns. And that might be one of the limitations of the squad, because right now it's pretty strong. It's looking like a pain. Now we're just waiting on Crosshair, who's probably about 2 weeks away based on the timeline that CG has committed to. We have, though, Jocasta's new video on the way. Put that one off the longest because it's the least timely of everything we've been putting out, but we have a bunch of Conquest content here, Datacron video, overview video there, but we also have sector by sector breakdowns with an efficiency approach. Thank you for watching. Be excellent to each other, everybody. This is Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.